across the globe. Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago and across the globe. Welcome to Real Talk Corner. Adasa, how are you?
Hi, I am fine, thank you. How are you, Esther?
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago and across the globe. Welcome to Real Talk Corner. Locally, regionally, and internationally on Facebook and YouTube Live. Welcome to another edition of Real Talk Corner, the program where we are not afraid to examine the difficult issues, confront uncomfortable truths, and encourage mature national conversation. I am your host, Dr. Esther Cruikshank, and joining me tonight is, my co host, the one and only Miss Hadassah Charles McLeod, and hopefully we're going to have Mr. Indal Kanhai shortly. Good evening and welcome. Tonight's program requires sensitivity, I must say, courage, honesty, and a balance because we are discussing our history, our culture, our political conduct, and the present condition of the African community. You know, that's a hot topic on social media right now. And tonight, our topic is emancipated. But are we truly free? Uncomfortable truths, cultural unity, and the conduct of an emancipated people. So we say, over the past several days, three separate incidents connected to African emancipation have created controversies. First, the Honorable Roger Alexander, Minister of Homeland Security, he declared that Africans are becoming an endangered species. His statement produced criticism and debate. And secondly, the University of Trinidad and Tobago, under the leadership of the Professor Dr. Selwyn Kudjo ORTT, held an emancipation program that included African and Indian cultural presentations. That decision also produced criticism, with some people claiming that the inclusion of Indian culture diluted or disrespected African emancipation. You would tell us better. And thirdly, on African Emancipation Day, Saturday, August the 1st, the Honorable Michelle Benjamin, Minister of Culture and Community Development, was booed, jeered, and confronted while addressing the national observance. So tonight, we must ask, what exactly do we want from emancipation as African people? Do we want honest reflection? Do we want cultural unity? Do we want government support? Do we want accountability? Or have we reached a place where almost everything that the UNC government does for the citizen of Trinidad and Tobago produces anger, division, and controversy? And we must ask an even more uncomfortable question tonight. Is some of this outrage genuinely is about African emancipation? Or is it being fueled by a political movement that has still not come to terms with the fact that the people of Trinidad and Tobago elected a UNC government led by the Honorable Prime Minister, Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, SCMP? Is this really about culture, or is culture being used as a weapon against a government that some people have refused to accept from the very beginning? Let us be honest tonight. There appears to be a deliberate effort by certain political actors and supporters to create resistance, hostility, and controversy around almost everything this government does. When a minister speaks, they attack. When the government attempts inclusion, they attack. When a minister attends a national cultural program, they boo. When the prime minister is praised, they become angry. So what is the real issue? Is it policy? Is it performance? Is it accountability? Or is it that some people cannot accept that a woman of East Indian ancestry leading the UNC is once again the democratically elected Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago? We must be courageous enough to confront racial and political hypocrisy wherever it exists. No political party has ownership over African people. No political party has ownership over Indian people. And no political party owns emancipation. No group has the right to turn African culture into a political weapon against an elected government. The UNC government must not be intimidated by organized hostility, political theater, or attempts to make the country ungovernable. The prime minister was elected to lead, the ministers were appointed to serve. They must remain accountable, accessible, and responsive, but they must also continue their work boldly and without fear. So, this program tonight is not intended to attack African people or the African community. I must make it clear. I am an African woman, and I will never support the degradation, marginalization, or disrespect of African people. But being African does not require me to defend every action performed by African persons. It does not require me to remain silent when our people behave irresponsible. It does not require me to exercise disrespect, political tribalism, racial hostility, or destructive conduct. True love for my people is not blind loyalty. True love tells the truth. True love corrects what is wrong. True love demands better. I will defend African history, African dignity, and African advancement. But I will also challenge the conduct that continues to weaken our communities. We cannot shout emancipation while remaining enslaved to party politics. We cannot speak about African unity while attacking every African person who serves in a government you do not support. We cannot demand respect while behaving disrespectfully. And we cannot blame every government, every minister, and every institution while refusing to examine our own selves. Tonight, I will not whisper around the truth. I will confront the racial undertones and the hypocrisy of the PNM, and I will confront the conduct within our community that must change. This is not an attack on African people, I repeat. It is a demand for African responsibility, African consciousness, and African progress. We cannot progress if we are only attacking one another. I am not attacking the African community. I will never do that because I too am an African woman. I respect my African ancestry. I honor the struggles of my foreparents, and I understand the importance of protecting African history and identity. But loving my people does not mean remaining silent about matters that required correction. Freedom must be accompanied by discipline, and emancipation must be demonstrated not only by what we wear and celebrate, but by the way we think, speak, the way we behave and build our communities. So tonight, let us begin. What Minister Roger Alexander spoke, is it an insult or an uncomfortable warning? We went up on arms. In this emancipation message of the minister, he described Africans as becoming an endangered species. And I'm going to give my co-host a chance to talk in a minute because I need to talk about this. Naturally, that expression attracted the attention of many. It is a powerful, provocative, and potentially troubling phrase when heard and understood without proper context. However, we must examine the entire substance of what he was saying before reaching a conclusion. The minister was not suggesting that African people are biologically inferior to anyone else. He was not calling for the mistreatment of African people. No, he was not speaking as an outsider who has no knowledge of African life and behavior. He was speaking of an African as an African man. And as someone with ex- extensive experience in law enforcement, he has been there. He has spent years observing the consequences of violent crime at close range. He has been has been and seen young men become both victims and perpetrators. He has seen mothers bury their children, especially their sons. He has seen families destroyed, communities traumatized, and young lives wasted through gang activity, imprisonment, and violent death. His expressions, endangered species, appears to have been a warning about the rate at which African lives, particularly the lives of young African men, are being lost. We may debate his choice of words. Yes, we may say that a government minister should communicate with greater precision. Why? We may also say that a sensitive subject requires language that cannot easily be misinterpreted. Didn't the PNM do it all along? And he did not do that. But we must not use our disagreement with one expression that cannot, come on, the expression to avoid the greater issue he was raising. Too many young men are dying. That is what he meant. Too many are entering the criminal justice system. Too many children are growing without responsible parents, especially fathers. Too many communities are affected by violence, poor educational outcomes, hopelessness, and a shortage of positive role models. That does not mean that crime belongs to African people alone. Crime has no race. There are criminals from every ethnic background, and there are decent, law abiding, and productive people within every ethnic community. So we must never conclude that an innocent African young man is is a criminal simply because of his appearance. And you know we do that. There are thousands of responsible, intelligent, hardworking, and ambitious African young men throughout Trinidad and Tobago. They must not be condemned or stereotyped because of the actions of destructive minority. It's a minority of young men and African people that behave the way they behave. But we must also be honest about the effect that violent crime has produced. When certain crimes are repeatedly committed by young men fitting a particular profile, fear and suspicion develop. If you would agree, it is the truth. Innocent young men then suffer because they are judged by the reputation created by others. This or that consequence of crime that we really discuss, and we need to discuss it. We push those things under the carpet. We need to discuss the offender damages the victim's family, the community, and even innocent people who resemble them. Therefore, the minister message should lead us to what? To some action. Instead of carrying on the way we have been carrying on, we are the sustained mentorship. Where are the sustained mentorship programs? Where are the responsible men returning to guide the boys? Long time we used to have girl guides and different things we used to have. Where are those things? Where are the churches? Where are the businesses, sporting organization, cultural organization, and community groups? Where are the programs teaching discipline, conflict resolution, entrepreneurship, fatherhood, and personal responsibility? We cannot say we're celebrating African greatness on August the 1st every year and abandon our African children by August the 2nd. We're not even doing it by August the 2nd. On August the 1st, we cannot wear African clothing for one day and refuse to address the conditions destroying African communities throughout the remainder of the year. Cultural celebration is important. African clothing is important. The drumming, the dancing, history, and ancestral remembrance are important, people. But emancipation must also mean liberation from ignorance, violence, from dependency, from hopelessness, and from self destructive behavior. I do not believe for a minute that Minister Roger Alexander intended to attack African people. I believe he was sounding an alarm. The warning cannot be ignored. our African men, and now even our women faces a very high risk of being killed, of being diminished. And we must pay attention and not go up in smoke and carry on as though, they're trying to disqualify us. Don't follow the PNM leadership with the BS. Don't. They are leading us astray. Do not listen to them. Let us be conscious of who we are. Let us teach our children and let us be mindful of what emancipation is. Are we really emancipated? Let us find out for ourselves. My co-host, Sadasa, what do you say?
How do I respond to that? Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening to our audience and everybody who is catching the show right now and will catch it on the rerun. Good night to my co-host, my beautiful co-host Esther and Indar. I know he has joined as well. Esther, I want to say that was a really beautiful and sobering speech that you just rendered. I want to say happy emancipation to all my fellow Afro Trinbagonians, brothers and sisters. It's great to be on tonight. I feel so sober after Esther's words. Um, and the question remains, about whether we are truly free. And I think what I was ruminating on earlier today is that freedom really is a state of mind because in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, we have not been like physically in shackles or have had our freedom limited in terms of what we can do and where we can go and who we can marry and things like that. But in a lot of ways, unfortunately, a lot of our Afro Trinbagonian brothers and sisters are shackled in their minds. Um, and it plays out a lot in our politics as we saw over the weekend. And I really want to commend Michelle Benjamin, who had the frustration of people unleashed on her when the past Minister of Culture, Randall Mitchell, was able to get away scot free. And this is what I mean by this whole idea of emancipation being a state of mind, because somehow black people have decided that the reason and the angst for all of their frustrations, for all of their failures, for everything that is wrong within the communities and our country is the UNC, which is a very interesting way to think when one, the PNM has held power for most of the time since we have gained independence, and two, they were the party in power for 10 years up till last year. So a lot of the frustration is misplaced, and a lot of it is dishonest, right? Because we could never escape that Keith Rowley was a terrible prime minister and he was concerned about uplifting a very small handful of persons within our society. And in a lot of ways, yes, black people suffered. We cannot escape that. But at what point are we going to take uh, responsibility? Because under the same governments, all the other ethnic groups within our society has managed to band together, to come together, to be united in purpose and determination, and have managed to eke out their lives. They have managed to create They have managed to build, they have managed so much, right? And notwithstanding that we have uh, a proliferation of very, very, very successful Afro Trinbagonian men and women. I will never discount that. I will never take that away from those persons who have achieved great things, who have put us on the map, people like Wendy Fitzwilliams and Atto Bolden and Keishon Walcott, and the list continues to grow. This is individuals. Collectively, though, as a group, we have suffered and we are lacking. Um, so this is a time for us to. This is a season of reckoning, I will say, because you cannot be continue to lay all your faults and all your issues at the feet of Kamala Prasad Bissessar, who has from day one shown that she is intent on raising the standard of living and raising the lives of everybody, including Afro Begonians, and giving people hope and opportunity and creating a country that we could be proud of. I was really sad to see that grown woman going at Michelle Benjamin while she was trying to give her speech, and I felt like it almost felt like a personification of all the issues we just be talking about within our community, because Michelle Benjamin is a young woman compared to this woman, right? And she's going on, and she's not being an example, she's not trying to be a leader, and she has not recognized that maybe she should have held Keith Rowley's feet and his administration feet to the fire the same way that she's trying to do with this newly elected MP, right? Um, I have so much that I want to say, but I really want to hear what Indar has to say. When our Minister of Homeland Security, Roger Alexander, spoke about us being an endangered species, I didn't even think about it just in the context of the amount of people who have died or been murdered because of our open borders, because crime was out of control, because the PNM had no will to to deal with that issue whatsoever, because it meant that other people were benefiting. When he said that, it resonated to me as an endangered species, even in terms of the type of people that we used to be, because black people used to be so much more resilient, and we used to have so much more pride, and we used to produce so much more. And over the years, I don't know what has happened, but there has been a regression that has happened within the community as a collective. Again, I have to say it, I mean as a collective. And he is not wrong. And like Esther said, it is not something for us to attack, because we always do that. We always talking about we want people to respect us. We want to respect, we respect, but we are not respecting ourselves. We are not respecting ourselves. We don't conduct ourselves in a way that warrants other people to respect us, and in a way that says, okay, I can be a beacon in my community. I want to uplift and I want to pull people up with me, you know? So I would say more, because I have a lot more things in my notes that is more closely linked to our politics specifically. But it has been a very sobering weekend in terms of recognizing that there's a lot of work to be done and there's a lot of ground for us to cover. And truly, when Bob Marley said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery, he understood the plight of Black people. That song encapsulates so clearly the issues that we are dealing with. today. So that's what I would say for now. Thank you.
Said when Bob Marley said, emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, he went further, none but ourselves. Is not anybody else. It is none but ourselves to do the things that we need to do to be free in our mind. But I want to ask this question, and I want Hadassah and also Indar when he comes on. Good night to Indar. Do you believe the minister's words were inappropriate, or do you believe the controversy has overshadowed his central message? Because the minister had a message, it was a message he was trying to send out. But of course, you know who take it and run with it as though, it is such a bad thing. Or he could say the African is an endangered species. We are being killed. Our young men are being killed out. What is taking place with us? We are not coming together. We are not working together. And I have two other sessions that I want to talk about because over this weekend had a lot. You had the minister, we had the professor Kojo with UTT, and then we had our minister Michelle Benjamin. So we want to talk about that, but I would like to ask the question: do you believe Hadassah, the minister's words were inappropriate, or do you believe that the controversy just overshadowed his central message?
No, not at all. They were not inappropriate. But again, there is something that happens with the people that support the PNM because when Kit Rowley was prime minister, people everybody was deaf and dumb and blind, right? They didn't hear when Kit Rowley said derogatory things about women and grooming their pastors and things like that. In Dara's honor, Esther, so he could speak
Yes, I
after
said
me.
goodnight to him and he would
Um,
respond as well. Yeah, I just wanted to hear you,
they
of
did
course.
they didn't see all the bad roads and all the buildings that needed to be maintained and all
Mm-hmm.
the corruption that was taking place, and they didn't hear the terrible things that Keith Rowley used to say, and everybody was dumb. Nobody was protesting every Monday morning for
Exactly.
new salaries and raises and whatnot and whatnot and whatnot. But as soon as Kamala Prasad Visesa became prime minister, all of a sudden we have people taking
Yeah.
to social media and doing videos. There is Aquila Glasgow down in the Diego Martin Corporation who doing videos about the bad roads and whatnot. That was
As
Keith
though the bad roads
Rowley's
now
constituency
came.
west. For
Hmm.
34 years, he was the MP. And all of a sudden, she now knows that they have been neglected and things need to be done. And she's calling on Jillian John to do the work and to fix this and to fix that. Why wasn't she calling on Rohanson and when he was there?
But the thing
Right? But
is,
I didn't want to get into I
calling
didn't want to get
on
into
Minister
this part.
Geraldine John, she is going to do what has to be done, but they have to wait. Let me introduce our next colleague, our co-host, Indar. Khan, hi. How are you, my brother? Is is Indar there with us?
I don't know if you're hearing me. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you loud and clear now.
A very, very special good night to you. You look very
Thank
nice, and
you.
so does this other Hadassah. Very good night to you guys. I don't know if we have a. You hearing me
We
clear,
hear
right?
we hearing you. Yes, we hearing you clearly.
Okay, so you can see his daylight here, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing that.
Right. So that means
And
you can
I'm
see this house right next door to me here.
yes,
Okay, so there is a Pakistani family that is living right next door here,
right.
right here. What I'm saying, right down the road there. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah.
So you see, everybody's walking there. There's people of different races and different colors. Um, I can't go very further because I'm gonna lose the Wi-Fi. So I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to make a point here, right? So I met another couple here from Nigeria, and earlier on I met some people from Germany,
Right.
right? And I asked the question, um, how do you guys feel about racism here? And they said, well, they frowned upon it. And I wish I could call. I saw this lady here and I wanted to call her. She's walking her dog here. And I wish I can call her, but if I walk out there, then I'm going to lose the Wi-Fi. But listen, the
Right.
point is, in a first world nation that I'm in Canada right now, in a first world nation, you have the same issue that is going on from what I see here. But there's a general consensus that is frowned upon, and that is once you start talking race and these kinds of things, people get offended, so they don't talk about it. The issue that I've seen here, that I've seen back home for the last couple of days is very unfortunate, and that is um, if you get up in the morning and you start to say bad things to people, it obviously has a negative effect, like everything else, right? So if I look at Adasa and I look at you, Esther, and I say, hey, I don't like you because your color is different from mine, or Adasa has a glasses, and my glasses is one that is cheap that I paid less for, and you have some expensive glasses, and I don't like you because you're different from me. It doesn't mean that we can't live together in one, right? You guys hearing me, right?
Yes, yes.
Right. So I asked the
Yes.
question to these guys that are going on Facebook and
Right.
social media and saying all these bad things. I believe more than anything, this is a very small group of people that is trying to destabilize the way where we think and how the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Because I think that whether you're black, white, Indian, Chinese, Trinidad and Tobago knows a lot better than that. But these people are trying to destabilize in our mind and how we think. And I ask the question is, what is their end game? What are they trying to, at the end of what they do, what exactly are they going to try to accomplish? Is it that they're trying to destabilize the current government and then after call call for an election? That is one aspect of it. The second one is, what if there is a monster that you're creating and it can have a riot? It can have my kids, I have young kids, I don't know about you guys, and they're walking on the road and because of the color of the skin or the texture of their hair or for whatever reason or the vehicle that they drive. I can't go on the vehicle that they drive because if you turn around here, the guy next door here who's Pakistani, he's driving a Benz. The one across the road there, he's driving the same vehicle. So based on its standard of living here, it's much better. So they all able to drive the same vehicle. But I'm asking the end result, if our kids walk out on the street because of our irresponsible behavior and promoting racism, right? You maybe have that hate on you. But if you have that hate because of whatever reason, because of your allegiance to PNM or UNC or whosoever, how is it going to affect the children when they don't know nothing? Because I telling you, if I ask my children about who my children have friends who are of Negro, Chinese, and white. I have friends who are Negro and who are Chinese and who are white as well. And but the younger ones don't care about that. But they can walk on the road, and if somebody who takes that very serious and attack them, then what is going to happen? Isn't that the monster that you're creating? Is that what we want for Trinidad and Tobago? Or we boasting about we are a country of a multicultural society, but you have people doing these things in order for political gain, right? And mashing up Trinidad and Tobago. How could you all feel proud about that? What is it you want? You The country have had an election recently. They have selected a different government from the one that you're accustomed to, right? And you have 5 years to do it. You give them the chance to do whatever is necessary, and then when the election time comes, you do what is necessary. If you're not happy, you change the government. But these things that they're doing with racism is so very unfortunate, and they don't know 2 or 3 years from now how it's going to affect the younger ones and how it's going to affect the way that the rest of the world look at us. I mean, you're coming out in a different country and you're seeing how people living together, even though they may not like one another. I don't know that, but I'm just saying if they think like the way that we think, and they say, well, I ain't like you and you ain't like you because you different and you's a PNM and you's a UNC, but they live together like normal, right? But there's a few people in Trinidad. that is deciding that they're going to mash up everything. But one thing I have faith in, I still come home, and when I come home, I still walk in the airport. I still go to whatever, and the same thing where everybody else, and we don't have that problem. So there's a minority of people that is trying to destabilize all of us in their minds and in our minds, and we cannot give in to them. We have to show them that we are better than that. At the end of the day, I am Indian. I have Indian lineage, but at the end of the day, I am a Trinidadian. I'm a born Trini. I'm a born Trini, and that cannot change. I don't know what you think about
In
it.
there, definitely. And you know what is very disturbing for most of the time is these PNM leaders, okay? They always want to try to destabilize this country when another government is in power who is doing much better to the very African people, okay, that they neglected, and they just try to run the propaganda to see how they can mash up the place. That is what they cannot deal with the fact that a woman in the body of our prime minister is back as the prime minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And they are hurt. They didn't expect that. They really didn't expect that because they are like crabs in buckets. They pull down the African people, just push them down, stamp the foot on their face. And the Africans and them who are following them, they don't have, it's like they don't have sense. I would not say they're stupid, but I don't know. They don't have sense to see and to understand that the PNM government doesn't care about them. But when you look on the other side, the PNM government has a lot of Indian. So this is a something that is subscribed just to create this kind of pulling and tugging and racism slurs so that they could win the election again. But that they will not see this time because people are not stupid. And tonight, those of us who are watching, I want you to share your views respectfully. Tell us, was Minister Roger Alexander insulting African people, or was he expressing an uncomfortable truth in language that may have been or seemed to be strong? And beyond the controversy, what solutions are you proposing? Because Real Talk Corner is not only about identifying problems. We must also discuss solutions. And tonight, I want to talk about the three things that happened. It was the message from the minister, it was the UTT program, and also the Minister of Community Development when they carry on like real fools. That was a foolish behavior that took place there when they want to talk about emancipation. The first controversy over this weekend involved an African minister. We celebrating African emancipation. It was involved an African minister challenging the African community. That's what he was doing. The second involves an African scholar attempting to honor African history while promoting national unity. Yet, this too became controversial. And let us examine the program held by the University of Trinidad and Tobago because I saw nothing wrong with it. On July 29th, the University of Trinidad and Tobago, we held an emancipation program under the leadership of Professor Dr. Selwyn Kojo, ORTT. Professor Kojo is not unfamiliar with African history. He has spent much of his academic life researching, writing, and teaching about African people. Oh my God, I really trying to understand how we think. He tried to teach us about the past life, colonialism, slavery, Caribbean history, and the Black experience. UTT's Emancipation Initiative also involved the republication and consideration of Reverend Philip Henry Douglas 1888 Jubilee of Emancipation Address. That address challenged formally enslaved people to reject self-degradation, develop the power of their minds, and secure a dignified position within a multiracial society. The accompanying UTT material emphasized African history, education, economic opportunity, mentorship, unity, and the need to prevent young people from being recruited into criminal gangs. It also argued that Trinidad and Tobago must overcome racial and political division through collaboration among different communities. However, UTT's program included Indian cultural participation, and some individuals interpreted that as being disrespectful to African emancipation. Now, as an African woman, I do not understand the concern that they had. African emancipation is not a generic multicultural celebration. It commemorates a specific history. It commemorates the enslavement, exploitation, resistance, and eventually legal liberation of African people. Therefore, the African story remained central. African story is not a footnote. African suffering was not diluted. African resistance is not being erased. African identity was not threatened as merely a decorative component. The event was intended to commemorate African emancipation. But we ask, and we should always ask another question in times like these: does the respectful participation of another culture automatically erase African history? I don't believe that. It does not. There is an important difference between cultural replacement and cultural solidarity. Cultural replacement enters your space and attempts to remove you from the center. But cultural solidarity enters your space, acknowledges that the occasion belongs historically to you and whatever you say. We respect your journey and we stand with you. That is what was being done. An Indian cultural presentation within an African emancipation program can represent solidarity. It can represent another cultural community saying to African people, your ancestors' struggle matters to us. Your freedom matters to us. Your history is an important part of our national story. We stand with you as you honor your foreparents. That does not represent disrespect. It surely represents national unity. African enslavement and Indian indentureship were not the same system. We all are aware of it. They had different origins, different legal arrangements, and different historical experiences. Both histories must be taught accurately. Both communities deserve space to commemorate their ancestors. Neither history should be used to compete with, minimize, or replace the other. My position is therefore very clear. African emancipation must remain unapologetically African centered, but it does not have to be African exclusive. The African drum must lead. The African story must be told fully. African resistance must be remembered. African heroes must be honored. African children must understand who they are and where they came from. The PNM never taught our children that. All they're about is confusion and telling us what we are not and what we are not and all this nonsense. But if another community enters our space respectfully and wishes to stand with us, we should examine the intention before declaring that its presence is automatically an insult. How could it be an insult? How could it be disrespectful? The UTT document itself called for African pride while also arguing for cooperation across ethnic lines. It warned against political acrimony, racial segregation, and the habit of turning our collective power against ourselves through jealousy and rivalry. That seems to have been the broader purpose of Professor Kojo's initiative. This presentation represents the solidarity of one cultural community with another and our shared commitment that no people should ever again be enslaved, exploited, or dehumanized. I am also of the view that this should not be a one-way exercise. When Trinidad and Tobago observe Indian Arrival Day, African cultural participation could similarly represent friendship and national solidarity, while the Indian experience remains central. True inclusion should be respectful, reciprocal, and properly explained. I believe that we can defend African history without attacking Indian culture. We can honor Indian history without erasing African suffering. We can preserve distinct ancestral identities while building one Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to ask the question, where should organizers, or do you believe another culture's participation automatically dilutes an African emancipation program? I want my co-hosts and those of you who are viewing, put something. Tell me, do you believe another cultural participation could dilute an African emancipation program or Indian arrival program? We are one people in this country. Well, we ought to be one people in this country. Hadassah.
We like to claim that every creed and race find an equal place, and we are this multicultural cosmopolitan country. We love to say and claim that we are Kalulu in terms of the different types of people and cultures and everything that melds together to make Trinidad and Tobago what it is, until we actually have to walk the walk. And I think that it is really sad that you have to defend yourself so much to the hilt. You have
Mm.
to defend your Africanness or your blackness so much that you have to tear down somebody's. And you are claiming that is a show of disrespect. But your own behavior is eroding and subtracting from your own African legacy. It's really such a contradiction to me. I don't understand it because we are, like Indara said, he is in Canada and he is in a literally in a community, in a neighborhood where there are different people living together side by side, right? And this is what Trinidad and Tobago is supposed to be, right? And we are supposed to uplift and celebrate each other, and we are supposed to be so happy when other races come to celebrate who we are or to remember our struggle and our resistance and how far we have come. And I think what we are actually doing now is we are going to make people think twice about wanting to be involved, about wanting to celebrate alongside us, because people are going to be, oh, if I do this, they're going to see it as disrespect. Even before this incident at UTT, just the other day, I think it was the Indian High Commissioner wanted to have an event. I think it was surrounding an Indian holiday or something like that. And people cry, "Oh my gosh, racism! How you could take?"
And I think it is. All right. So, yeah.
So yeah, I think that we need to grow up, and I think we need to mature. Um, and it to me it just says that it's a way that people connect things in their mind, because if this very same program, um item by item, was recreated or it was put on by the PNM, they would not have said anything. Nobody would have been crying erasure. Nobody would have been crying disrespect, right? So I think people have somehow conflated the issues that anything that the UNC does, racism, disrespect, not good for black people, right? But everything that the PNM does is good. It is fine, right? They is always so quick to cry corruption. Always so quick to cry corruption. But Stuart Young had to recuse himself 98 times between 2015 and 2022, always crying racism. But their communities show how much they hate the people of Mova and Laventil and Beetham and Sealet, always crying incompetence. But they are the party of Fitzgerald Hines and Terence Yelsing. So let us be real. Let us be real. The PNM is looking at for everything to jab and to discredit and to pull down the UNC. Great efforts. I think this was actually one of the more wholesome and encompassing Emancipation Day celebrations that we have seen. Michelle Benjamin did a great job, just like she did for Carnival with that Flavor Festival. She's doing a great job in that ministry, but they will not give her credit because she's with the UNC. So we have a lot of growth to do. I don't know if Indar has any thoughts on it.
Guys, you can hear me? I know the connection is not 100%.
No, it's good.
So,
It's good. It's good.
okay, okay. So the thing about it, I think, to be very honest, and I don't want to lie to anybody, but I think that the UNC government is held by a different standard. So it's a simple case of um, where you have you're damn if you do and you're damn if you don't. So we are held by they are being held by different standards. The thing about it is when I showed you earlier on that you had a Pakistani group of people living next door, and you had a Nigerian people, and there were quite a few different people from different countries. They are the ones that visited the country and decided to stay here, right? And you know, they have their own issues that is going on where people um, are racist and will say things, go back to your country and that kind of thing. In our situation, we are born in Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm a Trini. My dad says a Trini, as Dr. Esther Kuchana is a Trini. And the thing about it, the very same thing that we boast about being we are very special because Trinidad is a melting pot of diversity and culture and all these different things, is the very same thing that we are trying to destroy. And when I say we, I'm not meaning me. I mean that you have a group of people because they want because of their political allegiances has different strategy in trying to destabilize or trying to push in the head of their detractors and of course to get support, and they are willing to go to any lengths to convince these different groups that you know what, this is not the people that you want to govern your country. It's very unfortunate. And like I said, I will still maintain it that the government has been given a 5 year mandate and it should be given a chance to do whatever is necessary for them to do. They've been given long before the election. There was um, a booklet that was given out to the general public, and that booklet gives the manifesto and outlining all that is going to be done within that 5 year period. And I believe they should be given a chance, just like every other government, to do all the things. Because if you vote on something, you vote because you're seeing a manifesto that explaining this is what we're going to do, meaning the government or the political party that intends to be in government. And as a result of that, you read all these things and you say, you know what? I'm going to vote for that because that's what I want to see happening in Trinidad and Tobago. But the unfortunate thing is we vote because of race and because I don't like he and he don't like me, he different from me, which is stupid, but it is what it is, and it's the reality of the situation here in Trinidad and Tobago. And I believe that this needs to be changed, and we need to grow up, as Hadassah say, we need to grow up and understand that we all each other, we are all Trinis. Regardless if I'm born in Trinidad and Tobago, I'm a Trini. Regardless of what I look like. If I am born here, I have the right like everybody else. And we must stop segregating, and we must stop discriminating against each other, because at the end of the day, if I'm a Trini, if Trinidad and Tobago goes up, we all benefit from it.
What has happened, when Minister Roger Alexander challenged the African community, the people, and I want to say, I must say this, when you go through social media, it's a handful of people, who are in the negative, led by the PNM leadership, right? When he challenged the African community, people became offended, those people, and it is the PNM. When Professor Dr. Selwyn Kojo attempted to promote cultural inclusion, they became offended. Then on African Emancipation Day itself, when the Minister of Culture and Community Development attended the national observance and was booed. So what exactly do we want? What do they want? And this brings me to my final controversy. The Honorable Michelle Benjamin, she, in her address, made a call for African unity, self-determination, and continued mental emancipation. She told African descendants that they must stand together, fight for their dreams, and emancipate themselves from mental slavery. The crowd reportedly remained largely silent. Nothing, they wasn't saying anything until the minister praised the Prime Minister, Mrs. Kamala Prasad Visesa, and said that she was proud to be a part of the cabinet. At that point, sections of the gathering begin to boo and jeer. So they really do not like our Prime Minister. Just imagine a woman who had positioned herself directly in front of the stage later declare that the government had promised food for tomorrow while people were starving today. Play the clip for me, producer. Okay, the clip is not there. But this woman come out in front there, and you knew that she was going to get on like a hooligan. That hooligan behavior, that was orchestrated. But let us establish something immediately. Emancipation includes the right to speak. I want to say that. Democracy includes the right to criticize. Citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have the right to question ministers. They have the right to demand accountabilities. Citizens have the right to challenge government concerning poverty, employment, cultural funding, crime, development, and unmet commitments. Yes, no minister is above scrutiny, and I totally support that. No administration should be protected from legitimate criticism. However, freedom of expression does not require disrespect. Protest does not require humiliation. They don't have to behave the way they behave, but they just come out in a vengeance to see if they can make the UNC government and the ministers feel humiliated. Accountability does not require disorder, and emancipation should not become an excuse for partisan and hostility. It should never. The minister was not booed because she insulted African people. She was not booed because she denied the history of slavery. They are the ones who disrespected her. They are the ones, when they stood on the pulpit, they never acknowledged the ministers of the government. She was not booed because she condemned African culture. The disturbance reportedly intensified when she praised the Prime Minister and her cabinet. They hate that woman with a passion, and that's the woman who does come here and turn around the economy when them bring it down to the gutter. When the PNM bring this government down, bring this country down to nothing, who does come and lift it up? Who does come and bring some kind of stability? People are entitled to dislike the government. That's their prerogative. They are entitled to disagree with the Prime Minister. They are also entitled to challenge the policies of the UNC administration. But we must ask whether booing the Minister of Culture during an African emancipation program demonstrated the dignity, the discipline, and unity that emancipation should represent. They're talking emancipation, and these hypocrites of these MP on the opposition side would open their mouth and talk as such as foolishness. Our ancestors did not struggle for freedom merely so that we could shout down everyone with whom we disagree with. That is nonsense, utter foolishness. They fought for recognition of our humanity. They fought for dignity. They fought for the right to think, learn, organize, build institutions, establish families, and determine their futures. We must therefore ask, what did that conduct teach the children who were watching? That is a big, full-grown woman, have no shame with herself, and all the others who encouraged it, and all who was behaving in that manner. Did it teach them how an emancipated people engage leadership? Did it teach the children how to challenge authority with evidence, discipline, and dignity? Or did it teach them that anger and public humiliation are acceptable substitutes for constructive dialogue? That is what they're teaching the young people, and that is what the PNM is about. Those are the modus operandi of the PNM leadership. We cannot demand respect for African people while publicly disrespecting an African woman who holds the office of Minister of Culture and Community. Who are they fooling? We cannot accuse Minister Roger Alexander of being harsh in describing the conduct affecting our communities and then demonstrate the very absence of restraint about which he was warning. The man was giving us a warning. He have the experience. He have been around. We cannot condemn Professor Selwyn Kojo for attempting to bring cultures together and then transform an emancipation gathering into another arena for racial and political division. Come on, we're too divided. And you know who does the dividing in this country? Always the leadership of the PNM. I personally want to see demonstrated through policy that African cultural development, education, youth advancement, enterprise, and community safety are national priorities. But these issues did not begin in March 2025. We must be honest. This has been going on for years, and it started from the time we became an independent country. And who was the government at the time? The financial, social, and institutional challenges affecting Trinidad and Tobago accumulated over many years. It didn't just start. So who, if they want to blame anyone for what is happening, is their own self, the leadership of the PNM, not the leadership of the UNC, not our prime minister, but they hate to hear that woman's name. They hate to see her face. A new administration cannot repair every inherited difficulty within approximately what, 15 months? 15 months, and they wanted to turn brass into gold and diamond. It simply means that transformation requires planning, resources, accountability, and time, something that the PNM didn't have or they don't know about. All they could do is talk propaganda, talk foolishness, bring down their own people. I am so upset of how these people behave. The leader of the PNM, talking a pack of nonsense about the prime minister to answer. The prime minister have to answer what? She don't have to answer to nothing that you all wanted to answer to. All she has to do is to serve the people, like she always say, and try to make a better society for us to live. It simply means that transformation requires planning, resources, accountability, and time. And I'm going to say it again. It means that transformation requires planning, resources, accountability, and time, something that the PNM don't know about, because they are the ones who took a decade and mash up this place. The people are suffering because of what they have done. The ministry previously stated, listen to this, that it inherited serious fiscal constraints and cited a national deficit of approximately $9 billion. It also called for greater accountability, public engagement, and reform in the planning of emancipation activities. The ministry argued that preserving emancipation must be a shared responsibility involving government, the private sector, cultural organizations, the media, and civil society. People may agree or disagree with that position, but the proper response is to examine the figures, people, demand transparency. Listen to me, now, man. You all want to blame the UNC government? The UNC government now come into power, and look at how much they have done. If you all want to be real with yourself and truthful, you would know that they have done a lot. But you know what? It have a set of PNM sycophants in those ministries who are stifling and undermining what the UNC is trying to do for you, to make it look as though the UNC government isn't doing nothing. So I want to ask a difficult political question. Would the same person have behaved in that manner under the previous administration? Were they equally confrontational when their communities faced crime, unemployment, poor infrastructure, and limited opportunities? All of them bumping the gum. The PNM was there for 10 years. We had pothole. We had swimming pools in the road. They had nothing to say. They had nothing to say. But now all they want to come and get on as though we, the UNC government, is who put those things, allow the place to deteriorate. Were they equally vocal when funding was delayed or when promises were not fulfilled? When the former prime minister said, oh, you have to ban all the belly and eat provision. When one say you can't eat no macaroni pie and callaloo, they all went up in uproar. Oh my God. Or do some people become courageous only when the UNC political party is in government? Accountability must be consistent. This is what you all need to know. We cannot be silent under one administration and uncontrollable hostile under another. Right must remain right, regardless of the political party. Wrong must remain wrong, regardless of race, culture, or party affiliation. No political party owns African people. I'm saying it again. No political party owns emancipation. No section of Port of Spain is the exclusive possession of one political movement. You have people like Twiggy and all of them. They, listen, is a set of bullies. But it's time that the Minister of Culture know that she has to represent the entire country and do not be intimidated. She has both a right and a responsibility to enter every national cultural space, including spaces where the government may not be politically popular. The government must not be intimidated out of serving any community because we are in the government. You remember Shamva Kojo had said, or they deal with that, them in power, and what they were in power to do, mash up the place. Mash up the place. Do you believe people apply the same standard of accountability to every political administration? No, the PNM has a biasness about them. When they get vexed with the PNM government, they just vote the UNC. All right? And after that, they just vote the UNC to turn a magic wand. It's like when UNC come into power, everything will change. Everything will come back into place. 10 years ago, things was good. All you vote out the UNC and put the PNM. PNM run it down. All you expect us to do what? To become magical? No. Don't mind our prime minister. They say put God in front and walk behind. She is not God. All right? She tried to do her best. Do you believe people? Listen, audience, to my viewers, let us know what you think. We need to wrap up. The time is going. Did the booing represent freedom of expression or did it undermine the meaning and dignity of African emancipation? Say your truth, you know. Say it on this program. Be respectful, but you can say your truth. And as I bring these three matters together, Roger Alexander challenged the African community and was condemned. Selwyn Kojo promoted African history alongside cultural inclusion and was condemned. Michelle Benjamin, attending the National Emancipation Observation, called for African unity and she was booed. So again, I ask, what exactly do they want? Do we want truth as long as the truth doesn't make us uncomfortable? Do we want unity only when unity occurs on our terms? Do we want government ministers to attend our events only when they say what we want to hear them say? Or do we want freedom without responsibility? Do we want rights without discipline? Do we want emancipation? God. Do we want emancipation as a cultural performance or as a principle by which we live? We don't want that. We want to get on like hooligans. As an African woman, I will defend the right of African people to criticize any government, but I will not defend with disrespect merely because the person displaying it are African. Don't do it. I will defend African history, but I will not use African history to promote hostility towards Indian people. I will support African unity. And right now, we have no unity among us. But I will not define unity as unquestioning agreement or political tribalism. I will not do that. I will defend our young African men against racial stereotyping. But I will also insist that we confront crime violence, absent fatherhood, poor choices, and destruction of our communities. That is what balance requires. African consciousness is not constant outrage. Everything is an outrage. African strength is not disorder. African liberation is not hostility towards every leader with whom we disagree with. Our history includes scholars, builders, warriors, teachers, inventors, spiritual leaders, diplomats, entrepreneurs, and community organizers. Hello, let us do better than that. We come from civilization that understood leadership, education. Our forefathers were not slaves where they were. They became slaves when they were enslaved to come into the Caribbean. Our conduct must reflect that inheritance. Let us emancipate our mind. Let emancipation become a way of our life and living. Not one day to come and make yourself a fool. No, I am ashamed of us when we behave the way we behave and we want to talk about emancipation. Emancipation must become a way of life. Emancipation must be more than an unusual procession. They look forward to come there and get on like real hooligans here to see them. It must be more than African clothing. It must be more than drumming, dancing, speeches, and ceremonial appearance. All those things are valuable, but they are not enough, African people. My African people, emancipation must mean freeing our minds from ignorance. It must mean freeing our politics from tribalism. It must mean freeing our families from abandonment, freeing our communities from violence. Oh my God. It means freeing our children from hopelessness. Our children are growing up in hopelessness. It means freeing our cultural institution from stagnation. It means freeing ourselves from the belief that every uncomfortable truth is an attack on the African community. It must mean developing the maturity to hear criticism, examine it, and decide what action is required. We must mentor our young men and young women. We must protect our women and children. We must strengthen African businesses. We must honor African scholars. They want to talk about the same African. They have an African business and they will not support it. They will go and support the 1%, the Syrians. They will support the Indian community. They will support everybody else but their own African people. But you come out there to attack the African ministers talking a pack of BS. We must strengthen and honor our African scholars. We must teach African history. We must support education, entrepreneurship, and community development. We must learn to disagree without destroying one another. The legal chains were removed, but you know what? Other chains remain. The chains of ignorance and racial suspicion, the chains of disrespect, dependency, jealousy, and internal division, the chains of self-destructive conduct is still on us. Until those chains are broken, the work of emancipation remains unfinished. So tonight, Real Talk Corner leaves Trinidad and Tobago with this question. We have been legally emancipated, but are we truly free? Are we free enough to hear the truth? Are we free enough to work with people of another race? That is freedom. Are we free enough to challenge a government without becoming disrespectful? Are we free enough to take responsibility for our own communities? Are we free enough to move beyond outrage and produce solutions? Minister Roger Alexander's statement should lead to intervention. Professor Selwyn Kojo program should lead to a deeper conversation about unity and cultural respect. The treatment of Minister Michelle Benjamin should lead to reflection on the difference between legitimate protest and public disrespect. Let us not allow controversy to bury the lesson contained in these three events. Let us preserve African history. Let us protect African dignity. Let us embrace respectful cultural solidarity. But above all, let us conduct ourselves as a conscious, responsible, and truly emancipated people. The chains were removed from our bodies in 1838. The chains remain in our minds, must now be broken by us. We have to do it. Emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind, free ourselves. This has been what we have been saying for a long time. And let me give my co-host a minute to close off, because right now I could talk and talk and talk. We as African people, our own destructive people, we destroy our own self and then we want to blame other cultures. We are not in a position to do that until we understand unity and until we understand that we are all Trinidad and Tobagonians. Then we will be able to lift our heads high and walk, and the other race is going to have respect for us. Hadassah and Indar.
Mm. Well said, Esther. Well said, Esther. We cannot want to embrace the illusion of freedom and emancipation under PNM and reject the real efforts of another administration to uplift not just us but everybody. You know, Esther, what you said tonight is very powerful, and I don't want to take away from it. But I have to go back to what Indar said about the UNC being held to a different standard, and that is linked so much to the mental slavery that you are talking about. And I'll give an example because I thought that we, as a collective, as a society, we had agreed that um, the 1% needed to be reined in, needed to be corralled, needed to be controlled after they have been able to consolidate so much power and essentially be able to do whatever they want in our country unchecked and bring things in and whatever, whatever, whatever. But from the moment that that woman, Star Sabga, made those terrible derogatory remarks about our prime minister, even alluding to somebody has to get a bullet in their head, they, the PNM, have made that woman a hero, right? And people are saying she is saying what people are actually feeling, which goes to show how deep the rot goes in the PNM, how deep the rot goes in the persons who support that party, right? Um, so this is an example of the kind of things that we need to be unshackled from, because it is almost as though once the PNM says it's okay. And we ignore the rot, we ignore the filth, we ignore the damage, we ignore everything. I thought as a country, we really wanted to bring certain people who were considered, but it seems that if the UNC does it, then it's wrong. And what is baffling to me is all this behavior is so disrespectful of the persons who voted for our current Prime Minister, Kamala Prasad Visesa, in numbers. She didn't just win, it was a landslide victory. People wanted different, people wanted change, right? And those who didn't vote because they were so disenchanted by the PNM, which allowed the UNC to win, that is also people exercising their franchise and taking part of our democracy, which is a freedom that we enjoy. Why is it now that the administration that has been voted in is getting so much pushback? It is really really baffling to me, and I just want to say that we need to do better. We need to remove the scales on our eyes that are keeping us back, that is stumbling us. We can do so much better, we can achieve so much more if we could just ignore racism and this idea that is them against us. No, it's all of us together. We are all in the same boat. Today or tomorrow, a hurricane or earthquake hits this country, it's all of us together, right? We are not different. It's all of us together. It's all of us are Trinbagonians, right? Yes, we have different lineages and we have different history and whatnot, but we all come together to make Trinidad and Tobago what it is. There's no need for this division, right? The division is there to control you, to keep you back, to keep you as pawn so that you can be used for numbers, for people who don't really care about you. It is time for us to be wise. It is time for us to wake up and to walk in the freedom that we have. We are no longer shackled, you know? So I just think that this is a great opportunity for us to look back from where we came from and to decide the path that we want to forge ahead. And we can do it alone, always grumbling and always unhappy and always pointing fingers, or we could lock arms with our brothers and sisters and we could make this country into the paradise that it could be. Indar.
That Indar is muted. I don't know if Indar is hearing us, but you are muted, Indar. Could you check your mic?
Hello?
Yes, you were muted, so we were not hearing you.
Okay. Okay, so my apology. So let me tell you, being here in Canada, I had the opportunity of going to Caribana. And being in Caribana, there are so many artists coming out of Trinidad and Tobago, Trinis, whether it be African, as we say Afro, or we say Indian, but we are all Trinis. So here we have in Caribana, I saw Marshall Montano, we saw Kes, we saw Karma, we saw Dilina Dan, we saw so many artists coming out of the Caribbean for Caribana. Caribana, Caribbean people, music. And you know what? They all were dancing, they all were enjoying themselves. Um, and they didn't care whether you were from Trinidad, Guyana, or whatever country that you were, as long as you were Caribbean people. What they celebrated is the fact that we are Caribbean people that appreciate each other and our different style of music, and they were enjoying that. I was there, I saw it for myself. Not one, not two, not three, but four different occasions and different events. And I will tell you, those people, sometimes when they ask the question based on what is going on in Trinidad, how is Trinidad? Sometimes I lie. And I will say, you know what? Everything is good, but it's not all well because we have some people that will go out of their way to take away that enjoyment that we have as the fact that we appreciate the diversity and the multicultural society that we are, all because they want whatever reason, whether it's political gain. But the point is, these people that are doing these things for political gain don't realize how much they are damaging our country and the image that we have outside here. But thank God we have the artists of Trinidad and Tobago and Marshall Montano, Kes, Nadia Batson was here, Karma, Delina Dan, and so many different of the different aspects of just Trinidad and Tobago. I'm not talking about what came from Guyana or St. Lucia or Jamaica. I'm talking about Trinidad because that's what I know about, and that's the only thing that I know about. And they are outside there working very hard to spread the good word of who we are as a people, despite all these people in terms of the political agenda trying to destroy things for whatever reason. You can't be a Trini. and try to manipulate people in this way. It is wrong. It is wrong. Stop the racism. It is wrong. And there is nothing good that could come out of something that is that bad. Please, let's live as one. This is who we are. It has always been who we are because that's what we boast about. When we fly Caribbean Airlines, we hear all the music. We boast about who we are as a people, and that must be maintained. And I beg you to keep doing that. And before I go, I want to say that Dr. Professor Selwyn Cujo, who did that event, did this with the best of intention. I cannot compare to Professor Selwyn Cujo. He is a man that is an encyclopedia, a walking encyclopedia. He has done his homework. He has gained his knowledge, and he should be given that respect in a way that many of us cannot even walk in the footsteps. And he did whatever he did. And it's very unfortunate that they just um, itemized these two items with Shivanan and baby Susan and showed just that part, but they did not show the entire thing, all the readings that was so beautifully done. And it's so unfortunate that everybody didn't get to see it. But if you looked at the entire program, it was beautiful, and it really represents the struggles of emancipation and our African brothers. And he just made a comparison of the indentures, and in that, after showing that, he diversified the entire program by showing these two different items. And it's unfortunate that somebody used that to manipulate others to promote hate. But it is what it is. At the end of the day, hopefully, we can change that mentality and we can be a better people. I have faith in Trinidad and Tobago, and I believe in our people. And I think things are going to get a lot better at some point in time, as long as these trolls that are doing these things um not able to convince people at some point in time. I hope so. That's my prayer.
And also Hadassah. I must say that, the UTT program was such a splendid, profound program. And it is the controversial propaganda of the former Minister of Education. Okay? Come out to talk about disrespect. They did not see the whole program. It was very inclusive. It was appreciative by our Indian brothers and sisters. And it was really a pleasure to be a part of that event. So tonight, our time has gone. I want to thank all of you. Remember, the chains were removed from our bodies in 1838, but the chains remaining in our minds must now be broken by us, the African people. Nobody can do it for you, and do not allow yourself to be chained up by those who have grievances, who have pain and hurt, that they are not in power to take this country down even more and to fill their pocket even better. This has been Real Talk Corner, and I'm your host, Dr. Esther Cruikshank. And joining me tonight was Hadassah Charles McLeod and my good colleague, Indar Kanhai. Thank you for watching, sharing, and participating in tonight's discussion. Please continue to leave your comments respectfully. Share this program so that we can extend this necessary national conversation. It needs to be extended. We need to talk more about it. The African community needs to come together. We need to work together, and we need to unite with our brothers and sisters of the Indian community and others. Until our next program, let us continue seeking truth, speaking truth, and building a better Trinidad and Tobago. Good night, and may God bless you all, your families, and our beloved nation. Goodbye.